Okay, so the purpose of this video is to, well, first of all, like I'm gonna try to do this one take, and I'm not gonna edit. Um, I want to talk about Miller-Fisher syndrome, which is a variation of Guillain-Barré syndrome. And first of all, like usually on this channel, I don't even post in English, and also like I usually talk about something completely different. So this video is not meant for whoever watches my usual videos. This is for someone that's actually like going through Miller-Fisher syndrome or knows somebody that's going through it. And since it's something like kind of rare to see, like I never heard about it. I I heard about Guillain-Barré, but not Miller-Fisher syndrome. So, and while I was going through it, and I'm still recovering, right? It's been 2 months. Yeah, 2 months, a little bit over 2 months. Uh, I couldn't find much. Only like doctors talking about uh, like the syndrome, like from a like technical perspective, but I didn't find many videos from actual patients that were going through the process of recovering from or that had recovered previously, from Miller-Fisher syndrome. I'm gonna try to make this video as information heavy as possible, but also like at the same time, I'm gonna try to keep it as short as I can. Usually, like I can talk for like hours, so I'm gonna try to be as short as I can here. And if I'm being repetitive, I'm sorry. I'm not. I don't have like a script. I'm just like doing this one take. Not even. I haven't even like thought about what I'm gonna say. I'm just gonna try to talk about what my experience with Miller-Fisher syndrome was. Um, so I start from the beginning. On the 25th of November last year, I think it was a Tuesday, I woke up and the left side of my face was numb and I had double vision. Very, very strong double vision. So it was not like I couldn't see anything, right? And at first, I was trying to process the information, right? I thought that it was something that I had just woken up. So maybe I slept, in a position that was, I don't know. I thought, I didn't think much of it. But as time went by, I started to get worried, right? So I thought I was having a stroke, right? Because that's what you think when you can't see straight and you have double vision and your face is numb and everything. So it's crazy. So I went to the ER, and I went to the closest hospital. I didn't go to like the best hospital that I could. I went to the closest because I thought I was having a stroke. So I had to be in hospital like as fast as I could, right? When I got there, they did like the first examinations, and they concluded that I was not having a stroke. I didn't have a stroke, but they didn't know what I had, so they ordered like a CT scan and some blood samples, and they concluded that day that I actually had only like a sinus infection. So they sent me home, and they told me to take like these couple of drugs. Like one was antibiotics, and the other one I don't know. What I know is they diagnosed me with a sinus infection, which I had, by the way, but it had nothing to do with what was going through. And they told me that it was like the double vision, that it would just like go away by itself. As days went by, so the next day I started having like a new symptom, right? My hands and my feet sort of like started like feeling a little bit tingly, right? And I felt a little bit numb in those areas as well. Like it was, I don't know, like it felt weird. Um, and that was on Wednesday, and then on Thursday, I started having like a new symptom, which was I couldn't walk straight. So I was walking as if I was drunk, right? So it's very similar to someone that's like super drunk. I couldn't walk like a straight line, and my legs were sort of like failing. Um, and the good thing is that my son had a doctor's appointment that day, and I also felt also like apart from all of those physical symptoms, I started having very, very high anxiety as well. So that's another thing that ended up being super hard to overcome. So since I was, I had my son's doctor's appointment, and I took him there. I couldn't drive, so my wife drove. After the appointment, I decided to go to there's like this hospital very close to the doctor's office. So I went there, which turns out to be like a very, very, very high end hospital, super good, super like, like it's a very good hospital. And when I got there in the to the ER, the doctor that analyzed me right off the bat said that I did not have a sinus infection, which by then was pretty obvious. It was already obvious like when I went to the first hospital, but now like with all the new symptoms, it was even more obvious, right? Um, and then she told me that I had to be admitted because I needed a like an urgent MRI because she thought that I had something neurological, and that the sinus infection. Even if I had it, she told me that the doctor told me that it was not relevant to what was actually like going on with me, right? So I got admitted, and I thought that it was just for the night. I thought that in the morning that I would go home, but I ended up like staying in the hospital for like 8 days, I think. And so that was on a Thursday. I had my MRI on Friday, like in at like 2 a.m. or something. And then like the MRI came clean, and then like they were like, we don't know what's wrong with you. And then they started like investigating and doing like a bunch of other MRIs and a bunch of other exams. They also did like this very specific blood exam that that's supposed to identify Miller Fisher, although like they weren't like sure what I had by then, and they hadn't told me anything yet. But also like regarding the anxiety that I mentioned, when on Thursday when they told me that I was supposed to be admitted to get this MRI, the anxiety symptoms started to grow. Although like it was already like very, very, very hard to deal with, I started like feeling some like physical symptoms that now I know weren't actually there. So I was, I've mentioned that I was feeling like tingly in the hands and feet, and by then also my mouth. I started feeling like like the symptoms, like the tingly and the numbness, started like progressing like super fast, and it felt like my body was gonna go like all numb, and I felt like it was like this numbness was like consuming my body, and like my lungs were gonna stop, or and I was gonna die. That's what I felt like. I felt like I was gonna die, and I wasn't 100% sure that I was gonna die, and I started to cry, which is I'm a very rational person. I don't cry. It's very hard for me to cry, and I just felt like helpless. I felt that I was gonna die right then and there. And now I know that I had my first panic attack there on that day. And since the panic attack, the like the anxiety symptoms, they didn't go away, it didn't improve. It actually only got sort of worse as the days went by, and I was getting worse, and they couldn't identify what was wrong with me. They couldn't diagnose me, and so it felt like I was gonna die, right? And it's funny that even when they actually went and told me, which was on Saturday evening, they told me that I probably had this syndrome called Miller-Fisher syndrome, which is a variation, rare variation of an already rare disease called, Guillain-Barré syndrome. Um, Even after that, I continued having panic attacks, and I want to emphasize this side of Miller Fisher's, because that's not something that when you read about Miller Fisher, I don't think people emphasize enough on the psychological symptoms, which, at least like in my experience, for me, it was actually like the hardest part to deal with. Like the physical symptoms, like the double vision, the fact that I couldn't see 3 inches away from my face, I couldn't see. It was like I couldn't look at my phone, even if it was like super close to my face, I couldn't read anything. So I stopped looking at screens and reading, and I was just basically like listening to stuff and like talking to my wife, talking to my family and stuff, talking to the people that was like visiting me in the hospital. Um, like the anxiety symptoms were just like, it was the worst part. It was the worst part. Like the physical symptoms was like, they were nothing close to what I was feeling in terms of this feeling that I was gonna die. And I began creating symptoms out of the blue. Like one day I thought I was having a heart attack. I was convinced, 100% convinced, that I was having a heart attack, and that my wife and the nurses and the doctors, they all knew about it, and they were lying to me. They were trying to hide it from me because they didn't want me to know that I was gonna die that day. That was one. Then I convinced myself, even after like I'd done like 20, I'm exaggerating, I only did like 4 MRIs, but even after I'd done like, like 10 different exams that would rule out MS, I convinced myself that I had MS. And the reason why I convinced myself was just because my dad mentioned something regarding the disease, but he didn't say that he thought that I had it, or he didn't. He wasn't even like talking about me at all. He just mentioned the neurological disease called MS, right? And I convinced myself that I had MS, and all the doctors, were lying to me, and everyone was hiding it from me, that I was gonna die. I even told my wife that since I had it, and if I had it, and I started like getting worse and worse, and I was not gonna get better, I thought that I was gonna like end myself. I don't want to actually like say the word, but I think you got what I'm trying to say. And it's interesting because now that I'm a little bit better, I'm substantially better. I'm a lot better actually. It's unbelievable that happened to me, because like during what I was going through there, during this whole it was like a few days I was like completely out of myself. Like it didn't even feel like that it was me there. It was like this different person that took over. It's so crazy, and it's a very strong feeling of like of helplessness. I couldn't think straight. I was like doubting everything that people told me, and I convinced myself of a bunch of lies that I fabricated out of the blue, and that only, and it was in my head, it was like 100% true. Like one thing that I tell my therapist is that it felt like I was schizophrenic. And like when a schizophrenic sees someone in front of them, like they can't tell whether or not it's a hallucination. It was the same thing with me. Like I had physical symptoms I felt the pain of a heart attack, and I actually didn't have it. I was like sort of like hallucinating the pain. And the same thing with the day that I got admitted into the hospital, that I felt my lungs were gonna stop because of the whole numbness that was like consuming my body and everything that I told you about. That didn't happen. Like that was I hallucinated. I don't know. Like and that's just like anxiety and panic attacks and things like that. So it's crazy. It's crazy how strong those symptoms can be. And hopefully, if you're watching this and you're going through the Miller-Fisher syndrome or Guillain-Barré or any other neurological um, condition, like hopefully you're not going through what I went through. But if you are, like, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. It gets better because now I'm like I'm not like 100% normal. I'm not like 100% back to normal yet. It's only been like 2 months, uh, but it's so much better. I still I still get some anxiety, uh, like spikes, but the spikes, they don't go as high like as like not even close to getting close to becoming like a panic attack anymore. So it gets better, just like the physical symptoms. It gets better. So now back to Miller Fisher. When they diagnosed me, they didn't actually like 100% diagnosed Miller Fisher, but on Saturday I was already like pretty bad. Like couldn't see anything. I couldn't walk. I was like very very bad. A very bad spot. This angel of a doctor. She was like, we're between like these two diseases. One of them is Miller Fisher syndrome, and there's this other one that I forgot the name now, and it's not relevant. She was like, we're not sure. It's one of these two, and then she left the room, and like 15 minutes later she got back into my room, and she was like, you know what, we're gonna start treatment on for the Miller Fisher syndrome, because if it's the other one, it's not gonna do you any, like, you're not gonna get worse because of this medication, although it's a very 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 strong medication, right? So I started this medication on Sunday. So it was basically like it was like this IV medication called immunoglobulin, I think, the name. I know that it's a very expensive treatment and everything, and so I started like taking this medication on Sunday, and I took it for 5 days. So the last day of treatment was on Thursday, and I went home on Friday. And it's funny because I started Sunday, and on Monday I already felt better. So I still had very strong double vision, but it had improved a little bit. My walking started getting better like right away. My walking was the first symptom that um, resolved itself, right? So when I left the hospital on Friday, I was already like able to like read my phone, like see the screen and everything like 100% clear. I was walking somewhat normal, like maybe like 90% normal. Now that I'm like now like back then I thought that I was 100%, but now that I'm actually 100%, I know that I wasn't 100%. So I had to walk looking straight. I couldn't like move my head while I was walking, otherwise I get, I wouldn't walk like on a straight line. And then like 10 days later, all the numbness and everything, like apart from the eyes, just went away. One thing that's also like very important to mention, the treatment caused a very very strong headache. So I had, even after I left the hospital, even after the treatment had ended, for like the next like 10, 12, maybe 15 days, I had very, very strong headaches. And during the treatment, actually, in the hospital, like I had 24/7, very, very strong headaches, especially in the night. So it was terrible. I couldn't think. It was so strong, and no matter like how much pain medication they gave me, like it wasn't enough. Um, and then what else? Then it was like maybe like 2 weeks after I was home. It was only the double vision that had remained, right? And still, like to this day, I still get some double vision. It depends, it varies. So I think that on the when I was like 4 weeks after like I left the hospital, I was already able to drive, and I was basically like maybe like 20 days after I got home, I was already like living like a normal life. And it only got better, right? My symptoms, the only symptom that I still had was the double vision, right? And it's funny because like it's on it improves, right, week to week, but some days it's worse than the day before, or like I have like very good vision, and then like for 2 3 days straight my vision will be a little bit worse. But then like when it improves to a level that it was like that's like much better than it was even like before it got a little bit worse. So it's like it's on a trend of improvement. And right now, like my vision has never been, after I got home, like it's at the best that it's ever been, right? And right now I think my vision, which is funny because 2 weeks ago, if you asked me, like I would say that my vision was like at like 80%, some days at 75% improved. Now to me it's like 90 95%, and it's only been like 2 months. So literature says, all the I read a few articles, medical articles about Miller Fisher, and some people it might take like a year, some people it takes 6 months, and some people it takes like 3 months for you to feel like 100%. And to me, I'm on the 2 months mark, and probably by the time I get to like the 3 months mark, I'll be 99%, which is amazing. I was expecting way longer than that. I was expecting to see all messed up for like 6 months. So that's amazing. I'm actually like I'm so glad that I'm finally getting better. That the anxiety symptoms are also getting better. And so yeah, I just wanted to tell my story, because if you're going through this, like it gets better. It doesn't look like it. I know, but it's gonna get better. You're gonna be 100%. You just have to be patient. All right. All right. So if you have any questions, just leave a comment, or try to find me somehow, and I'll just reach out, and I'll try to reply. All right. So peace.